Yeah, that's interesting. So the LCQ, they're calling it Q1, Q2. I think if you're gonna force the 30 riders, we've done this ad nauseum.
Yeah,
Then you needed a fairer system, and doing away with the protection, but having two chances to get it, I think it's great.
yeah,
But you've just made an interesting point. Even though it's 30 and the top rider should never be out of the top 30, like you say, if they not quite firing on it yet for Q1, they make a small mistake, they got to go in Q2, and that's where they get the flat tire. You're like, shit. So maybe you want, yeah, that's why I said it should be 30 and 10 or whatever, or 30 and 20, it'd be 50 rides. But anyway, Alan, on that point, so some people might say, oh, but if you go to Q2, you got an advantage. You're getting to go on the track again. I'll tell you as a rider, and I'm sure Alan will go with me on this. You don't want to go to Q2 unless you are forced there and it starts raining for Q2 and it's been dry all week and the race is going to be raining. Then Q2 gets an advantage. They see a wet track. But that's just like a freak thing, right? We'll see how often it happens. But that's my one interesting caveat, that could become a cheeky advantage that you don't actually wish for before the day starts.
For It's interesting because we had a test event in Portugal, and the idea of the test event was to shake out this schedule, and because of that, with the girls, with Gracie and Lena, I asked them not to do the second run because they could do two runs on qualifying day, but I wanted them to focus on a one and done approach. And Gracie, I think she was third in her run. And then I was like, you're done for the day, cycle home, chill out, recover, ready for tomorrow. But all the other elite women went again. And it was
I saw
interesting.
that. It surprised me.
Yeah, so it was funny because they wanted the second bite at the cherry, and their times did get faster. And I think Gracie was a little bit like, well, hang on a second, why are they doing their second runs? And I said, well, obviously, we've got a strategy and we're trying to work towards you getting used to that one run. I do think at the top level, when you look at run times, and using Danny as an example, because he's really meticulous in logging every run that he does, generally a top elite rider does go faster the more time they spend on the track. So all things being equal, that extra run would be an advantage. But because you've got the top 20 that are taken out of it and they've got the time to recover, I think that it's a good shout, really. I don't think that you're going to see a huge jump. Or I don't think you're going to see the people who've done the LCQ having an unfair advantage. I actually think it's a good idea. And when you build the volume of training and again, going into a season, you're adding on a lot more extra runs across the year if you're always in that LCQ. So, yeah, I think that it's not a bad thing at all. I like the idea of one less run. I think it's good for those who've had a problem, but we've been trying to get used to it and trying to actually prepare for that, really.
Yeah, and I was surprised that some riders went again. If it was like a mock test race, well, then why are they going up? But they didn't have that many riders, so there
No.
was that. But yeah, this off season there's been a lot of racing. Sven mentioned so many races. I feel like I've got 15 tabs open in my other browser of like race results, the teams, all these things. And
I've got them
I
all on one
started.
tab, Andrew.
Hey, what?
I've put them all onto one tab.
How do you put them on one tab?
I cut and paste to make a new document, and I got every race that's happened this year in front of me in like 2 scrolls.
Perfect. Cool. So you can give me what patterns you see, but what I do think is also happening is certain riders are not showing up to all of them. Jackson Goldstone has done one race. It's hardline. I stand to be corrected. I know he did a local one in Canada. So I don't know if that's just him because of the travel in Canada, probably more than not. But burning yourself out pre-season could be a risk for a 10 race series. I know it only starts in May, but maybe someone like Dunn with this injury, someone like Loic, they might start a little slower than they hoped for, just not enough reps, but they might be motivated later in the year versus, I don't know, who's raced a lot? Ethan
Well,
Craig, but
I,
I do think he needs to because he's had a year off. So everyone's going to work differently. I'm sure Alan has to give different advice to every rider on his team. It's going to be totally different.
Yeah, it's what you're trying to get out of these preseason races. With Charlie's on this completely new bike, and he's wanted to get get used to it and get used to riding it quickly. And he's been performing amazingly well. And using this Portuguese test event, I think Pinky had come off the back of maybe 3 races into that, or two back-to-back races into that. So he was definitely race ready. And some other riders, talking with Loic, he was very much there to just feel himself back into racing. It was impressive, his approach, that he could just focus on himself and he wasn't getting carried away, because as soon as you put some tape up and you say there's a stopwatch, everyone's suddenly like, well, I better be at the top of the timesheets. But some of the riders were very good at understanding there's bigger fish to fry. Let's work ourselves into the season and just get a feel for. I think you need racing to understand what the bike does at that next level. Everything steps up. The suspension needs to be made harder. You find weaknesses in the bike if you've not raced it, and that is something where these pre-season races really come into their own. But if you come into the season off maybe 6 races, that's, can you keep that the mental stress of it is quite a lot for some riders. Some riders it's water for ducks back, but for others there certainly is challenges there. So getting that balance right is important.